Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. At 45, James felt trapped in a life that never quite fit. His reflection in the monitor's dark sections revealed a face he barely recognized, masculine features that felt like a mask he couldn't remove. James had long harbored a secret desire, one that gnawed at him day and night, the yearning to experience life as a woman. He pushed back from the desk, chair wheels squeaking in protest. The clock on the wall ticked relentlessly, a reminder of another day slipping away in a body that felt alien. James stood, stretching muscles stiff from hours of sitting, and made his way to the cramped kitchen. As he reached for a chipped mug, something caught his eye, a glint of metal on the counter where he was certain nothing had been before. Frowning, James moved closer, peering at the object. It was a ring, simple, silver, with an iridescent stone that seemed to shift colors as he tilted his head. "Where did you come from?" he murmured, picking it up. The metal was cool against his skin, and for a moment, he could have sworn it pulsed with an inner light. Without thinking, James slipped the ring onto his finger. A tingling sensation spread from the point of contact, racing up his arm and throughout his body. The world began to spin, colors blurring together like wet paint. He stumbled, gripping the counter for support as wave after wave of dizziness washed over him. When the room finally stopped moving, James blinked, trying to clear his vision. Something felt different, off balance. He looked down at his hands and gasped. They were smaller, more delicate, with long, tapered fingers. His gaze traveled up his arms, now smooth and free of the dark hair he'd always disliked. Heart pounding, James, no, not James anymore, stumbled to the bathroom. The face that stared back from the mirror was achingly familiar, yet utterly foreign. Soft features, wide eyes framed by long lashes, full lips parted in shock. Long auburn hair tumbled past shoulders that were narrower, more graceful. "I'm a woman," she whispered, her voice higher, melodious. She pressed a hand to her chest. "How is this possible?" As if in answer, the ring on her finger glowed softly. A warmth spread through her mind, and suddenly, she knew. Her name was Janet. She was 18 years old, about to start her first year at Everglade Academy, an exclusive boarding school for young women. Janet's head spun with the rush of new information. Memories that weren't hers, or were they, flooded her consciousness. A childhood spent in foster homes, always feeling out of place. The scholarship to Everglade, a chance at a better future. And underlying it all, a sense of rightness, of finally inhabiting a body that matched her soul. She looked around the bathroom, realizing it wasn't the same one from moments ago. This was a small dorm room, sparsely furnished, but clean. A suitcase sat on the bed, half unpacked. Outside the window, she could see manicured lawns and ivy-covered buildings. "Everglade Academy," Janet murmured, testing the words. A mix of excitement and terror coursed through her. She was about to start a new life, one she'd always dreamed of but never thought possible. A knock at the door startled her out of her reverie. "Hey, new girl, you coming to orientation or what?" Janet took a deep breath, straightening her shoulders. This was it. Her chance to live authentically, to experience the world as her true self. With trembling fingers, she opened the door, stepping into her new life. The hallway bustled with activity, young women darting back and forth, arms laden with books and bags. Janet felt a moment of panic. How was she supposed to navigate this unfamiliar world? The girl who had knocked, a tall, athletic blonde, grinned at her. "I'm Megan, your next-door neighbor. Come on, I'll show you where the auditorium is." She grabbed Janet's hand, pulling her along. "You're going to love it here. Everglade's the best." Janet stumbled after her, trying to take everything in. The corridors were a maze of polished wood and gleaming brass fixtures. Everywhere she looked, there were girls, laughing, chatting, adjusting uniforms that Janet suddenly realized she wasn't wearing. "Oh, no," she muttered, looking down at her oversized t-shirt and sweatpants. I'm not dressed properly. Megan glanced back, her eyebrows rising. Whoa, yeah. Did you lose your uniform? No worries, we'll stop by the office and get you sorted out after orientation. They're used to newbies forgetting things. Relief washed over Janet. She'd been worried her appearance would give her away, make everyone realize she didn't belong. But Megan's casual acceptance made her feel more at ease. Maybe she could do this after all. The auditorium was a grand space, with high ceilings and rows of plush seats. Janet and Megan slipped into chairs near the back just as a stern-looking woman in a tailored suit approached the podium. Welcome, ladies, to Everglade Academy, the woman began, her voice carrying easily through the room. I am Headmistress Thornton. You are about to embark on a journey of learning, growth, and self-discovery. As the headmistress continued her speech, Janet found her attention wandering. She was hyper-aware of her body, the way she sat, how her hair fell across her shoulders. Every sensation was new and slightly overwhelming. The fabric of her shirt felt different against her skin. The chair seemed larger beneath her. A movement caught her eye, and she turned to see a girl a few rows ahead staring at her. The girl, petite with a shock of vibrant blue hair, gave her a wink and a small wave. Janet felt her cheeks grow warm, and she quickly looked away, heart racing. What was that about? Was the girl just being friendly, or was there something more? Janet had never considered the implications of being attracted to women now that she was one herself. It was just one more thing to add to the growing list of experiences she'd have to navigate. The orientation seemed to drag on forever. By the time Headmistress Thornton finished speaking, Janet's head was spinning with rules, schedules, and expectations. She followed Megan out of the auditorium in a daze. All right, let's get you that uniform, Megan said cheerfully, steering Janet towards the administrative offices.
Can't have you walking around like that all semester, can we? The process of getting fitted for a uniform was both exhilarating and terrifying. Janet marveled at the feel of the white blouse, the pleated skirt that swished around her legs. She stared at her reflection in the full-length mirror, hardly able to believe the young woman looking back was her. You look great, Megan assured her, adjusting Janet's tie. Now come on, I'll show you where our first class is. We've got English Lit with Miss Blackwood. She's tough, but fair. As they walked to class, Janet tried to absorb everything around her. The weight of the book bag on her shoulder, the click of her new shoes on the polished floors, the way other girls smiled and nodded as they passed. It was all so surreal, yet oddly familiar, like a dream she'd had 1,000 times finally coming true. The classroom was already half full when they arrived. Janet slid into a seat near the window, her heart pounding. This was it, her first real test. Could she convincingly play the role of a normal teenage girl? Hey there, a voice said, and Janet looked up to see the blue-haired girl from the auditorium sliding into the seat next to her. I'm Zoe. You're new here, right?
Janet nodded, trying to keep her voice steady.
Yeah, I'm Janet. Just transferred in.
Zoe grinned, her green eyes sparkling.
Well, Janet, looks like we're going to be desk buddies. Fair warning, I'm terrible at taking notes, so you might not want to rely on me for study sessions.
Before Janet could respond, the teacher swept into the room, her presence immediately commanding attention. Miss Blackwood was a tall, imposing woman with sharp features and piercing dark eyes. She surveyed the class with a stern expression before breaking into a warm smile. Welcome, ladies, to Advanced English Literature. This semester we'll be exploring the works of female authors who challenged societal norms and pushed the boundaries of their times. Let's begin with a discussion of Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own. Who can tell me the significance of the title? Janet's hand shot up before she even realized what she was doing. Miss Blackwood nodded in her direction. Yes, Miss Janet, she supplied, suddenly aware of all eyes on her. The title refers to Woolf's assertion that a woman needs financial independence and a private space to create art. It's a metaphor for the freedom and opportunity denied to women throughout history. A hush fell over the classroom. Miss Blackwood's eyebrows rose slightly, a look of pleasant surprise crossing her face. "Very good, Janet. It seems we have a budding scholar in our midst." As the discussion continued, Janet found herself fully engaged, offering insights and participating in debates. It was exhilarating to express herself freely, to be taken seriously in an academic setting. She'd always been passionate about literature, but as James, she'd often felt self-conscious about showing too much enthusiasm. When class ended, Zoe turned to her with an impressed look. "Wow, you really know your stuff. Where did you transfer from?" Janet froze for a moment, realizing she didn't actually know the details of her fabricated background. "Oh, just a small public school, nothing special. I've always loved reading, though." Zoe nodded, seeming to accept this. "Well, you're going to do great here. Hey, a bunch of us are getting together in the common room later to hang out. You should join us." The invitation sent a thrill of excitement and anxiety through Janet. This was her chance to really immerse herself in the social aspects of her new life. "Sure, that sounds great," she heard herself say. The rest of the day passed in a blur of classes, each one presenting new challenges and opportunities. In math, Janet struggled with concepts that should have been familiar, her adult mind grappling with the limitations of her younger body's education. In biology, she marveled at the intricacies of the female reproductive system, seeing it from an entirely new perspective. By the time evening rolled around, Janet was exhausted but exhilarated. She changed out of her uniform into casual clothes, a process that still felt strange and new, and made her way to the common room. The space was cozy, with plush sofas and armchairs scattered around. A group of girls was already gathered, laughing and chatting. Zoe waved her over, patting the spot next to her on a love seat. "Janet, glad you could make it. Everyone, this is Janet, the new girl who totally showed up Miss Blackwood in English today." A chorus of hellos greeted her, and Janet felt a warmth spread through her chest. This feeling of acceptance, of being part of a group, was something she'd rarely experienced before. As the evening wore on, Janet found herself relaxing, joining in conversations about classes, teachers, and the upcoming school events. She laughed at inside jokes she shouldn't have understood, shared opinions on movies she'd never seen. It was as if the ring had not only changed her body, but had given her a lifetime of experiences to draw from. "So, Janet," one of the girls, Amanda, she thought, asked during a lull in the conversation, "do you have a boyfriend back home?" The question caught Janet off guard. She'd been so focused on adjusting to her new body and surroundings that she hadn't given much thought to romantic relationships. No boyfriend," she said, feeling a blush creep up her cheeks. "Ooh, playing the field?" another girl teased. "Smart move. There are some cute guys at our brother school, St. Ignatius. We have mixers with them sometimes." Janet's mind reeled at the implications. The idea of dating men as a woman was entirely foreign to her. But then again, so was everything else about this situation. She forced a smile, trying to appear nonchalant. "We'll see. I'm not really looking for anything right now. Just want to focus on school, you know?" Zoe nudged her gently. "Nothing wrong with that. Besides, who needs boys when you've got a whole school full of amazing women to be friends with?" The others laughed and agreed, the conversation moving on to other topics. But Janet caught Zoe giving her a lingering look, one that made her heart skip a beat. Was there something more behind that comment? As the night wore on, Janet found herself yawning, the events of the day catching up with her. She bid goodnight to her new friends and made her way back to her room, her mind whirling with everything that had happened. Alone in her dorm, Janet finally had a moment to truly process the day's events. She stood in front of the mirror, studying her reflection. The face looking back at her was becoming more familiar, but it still felt like a stranger in many ways. She ran her hands over her body, contours that were so different from what she'd known for 45 years. Her skin was softer, her frame more delicate. Yet there was a strength in this body, too, a resilience she was just beginning to understand. Janet's gaze fell on the ring that had started it all. It sat innocently on her finger, the stone now a deep, calm blue. She twisted it, wondering if removing it would reverse the transformation. But something held her back. This was what she'd always wanted, wasn't it? A chance to live as her true self. With a sigh, she began to get ready for bed. The simple act of changing clothes, of performing her nightly routine, took on new significance. Each movement was a reminder of her transformation, of the life she was now living. As she lay in bed staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, Janet's mind raced with questions. How long would this last? Was it permanent? What about her old life? Did anyone miss James? The thoughts swirled in her head, keeping sleep at bay, but mixed with the anxiety was a growing sense of excitement. Tomorrow would bring new experiences, new challenges. She was eager to learn more, to fully embrace this opportunity she'd been given. Gradually, Janet's eyes grew heavy. As she drifted off to sleep, a small smile played on her lips. Whatever happened, she was determined to make the most of this incredible journey. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. Janet threw herself into her studies, excelling in most subjects and working hard to catch up in others. She found herself developing genuine friendships with her classmates, particularly Zoe, whose quick wit and kind heart made her a constant source of support. There were moments of difficulty, of course. PE classes were a particular challenge, as Janet struggled to adjust to her new body's capabilities. The first time she had to change in the locker room, she nearly had a panic attack, convinced someone would notice something off about her. But as time went on, these moments became less frequent, less intense. One sunny afternoon, Janet found herself sprawled on the lawn with Zoe and a few other girls, enjoying a rare bit of free time. They were discussing the upcoming fall dance, a joint event with St. Ignatius that had the whole school buzzing with excitement. "So, Janet," Megan said, twirling a blade of grass between her fingers, "have you decided if you're going to the dance?" Janet hesitated. She'd been avoiding thinking about the dance, unsure how to navigate the complex social dynamics it presented. "I'm not sure," she admitted. "Dances aren't really my thing." Zoe sat up, fixing Janet with an intense look. "Oh, come on, you have to go. It'll be fun, I promise. We can all get ready together, make a whole night of it." The idea was tempting. Janet had never experienced anything like that before. The camaraderie of girls preparing for a big event, the excitement of dressing up. But the thought of interacting with boys, of potentially being expected to dance or flirt, made her stomach churn with anxiety. "I don't even have anything to wear," she protested weakly. Amanda waved a hand dismissively. "That's what weekend trips to the mall are for. Come on, we'll all go together and find you the perfect dress." Before Janet could come up with another excuse, the girls had made plans for a shopping expedition that weekend. She found herself swept along by their enthusiasm, a mix of excitement and trepidation building in her chest. The trip to the mall was an eye-opening experience. Janet marveled at the variety of clothes available, the way her friends effortlessly navigated the stores. She felt overwhelmed by the choices, unsure what styles would suit her new body. "Try this one," Zoe said, holding up an emerald green dress with a fitted bodice and flowing skirt. "It'll look amazing with your hair." Janet took the dress hesitantly, disappearing into a changing room. As she slipped it on, she gasped softly. The fabric hugged her curves, the color making her eyes seem brighter, her skin more radiant. For the first time, she felt truly beautiful. When she stepped out to show her friends, their reactions confirmed her feelings. There were gasps and squeals of delight, everyone talking over each other to compliment her. "You look stunning! That color is perfect on you! You're going to be the belle of the ball!" Janet blushed under the attention, but she couldn't stop smiling. This was what it felt like to be seen, truly seen, as the person she'd always known herself to be. The night of the dance arrived all too quickly. Janet stood in front of the mirror in her dorm room, hardly recognizing the young woman staring back at her. Her hair was styled in loose waves, her makeup subtle but enhancing her natural beauty. The green dress fit perfectly, making her feel elegant and confident. A knock at the door startled her out of her reverie. "Janet, you ready?" Zoe's voice called. Taking a deep breath, Janet opened the door. Zoe stood there, looking stunning in a deep blue dress that complemented her hair. For a moment, they just stared at each other, both a little awestruck. "Wow," Zoe breathed. "You look incredible." Janet felt her cheeks warm. "So do you," she replied softly. They made their way to the school gymnasium, which had been transformed for the occasion. Twinkling lights hung from the ceiling, creating a magical atmosphere. Music pulsed through the air, and the dance floor was already crowded with students from both schools. Janet hung back at first, content to watch from the sidelines. She observed the interactions between the boys and girls, noting the awkward flirtations, the shy glances, the bold approaches. It was like watching a nature documentary, she thought with amusement, all these intricate mating rituals on display. "Not going to dance?" a voice asked, and Janet turned to see Miss Blackwood standing nearby, looking elegant in a black cocktail dress. "Oh, I'm not much of a dancer," Janet admitted. Miss Blackwood smiled knowingly. "Sometimes the best way to learn is to jump right in. You might surprise yourself." As if on cue, Zoe appeared, grabbing Janet's hand. "Come on, this is my favorite song." She pulled Janet onto the dance floor before she could protest. At first, Janet felt stiff and awkward, unsure how to move her body to the beat. But as she watched Zoe and the others around her, she began to relax. She let the music guide her, swaying and twirling, laughing as Zoe spun her around. For a while, Janet lost herself in the joy of movement, in the camaraderie of dancing with her friends. But as the music shifted to a slower song, she felt a tap on her shoulder. A tall boy with sandy hair and a nervous smile stood there. Would you like to dance?" he asked, his voice cracking slightly. Janet froze, panic rising in her chest. This was the moment she'd been dreading. How was she supposed to handle this? She looked around frantically, seeking an escape. Her eyes met Zoe's, who seemed to sense her distress. Without missing a beat, Zoe stepped in. "Sorry, she promised this dance to me," she said smoothly, taking Janet's hand and leading her away. As they swayed together to the slow song, Janet felt her heartbeat gradually return to normal. "Thank you," she murmured. Zoe squeezed her hand gently. "Anytime. You okay?" Janet nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Being this close to Zoe, feeling the warmth of her body, the softness of her skin, was stirring emotions she wasn't quite ready to examine. As the dance continued, Janet found herself relaxing more and more. She danced with her friends, laughed at the antics of some of the more exuberant students, and even managed to have a pleasant conversation with a few of the St. Ignatius boys without feeling too uncomfortable. By the time the last song played, Janet was flushed and happy, her feet aching pleasantly from hours of dancing. As they made their way back to the dorms, she felt a sense of belonging she'd never experienced before. In her room, Janet carefully hung up her dress, still buzzing with the excitement of the evening. She caught sight of herself in the mirror and paused, really looking at her reflection. The young woman who gazed back at her was confident, joyful, at peace with herself. Janet realized with a start that she no longer thought of her old self as separate. This was who she was now, who she had always been meant to be. She twisted the ring on her finger, remembering the moment that had changed everything. Whatever magic had brought her here, she was grateful for it. This life, with its challenges and joys, its friendships and new experiences, was more than she could have ever dreamed of. As Janet crawled into bed, exhausted but content, she felt a sense of anticipation for what the future might hold. There was still so much to learn, so much to experience. But for the first time in her life, she was excited to face it all, secure in the knowledge that she was finally, truly herself. The The rest of the semester flew by in a whirlwind of classes, study sessions, and deepening friendships. Janet found herself thriving in ways she never had before. Her natural intelligence, combined with the enthusiasm of youth, made her a standout student. Teachers praised her insightful comments and well-written essays, and she even found herself enjoying subjects that had once been a struggle. But it wasn't just academics where Janet excelled. She discovered a talent for debate in her public speaking class, her years of life experience giving her a unique perspective on various topics. In art, she explored her creative side, finding joy in expressing herself through paint and clay. As winter approached, bringing with it the stress of final exams, Janet found herself spending more and more time with Zoe. They would huddle together in the library, quizzing each other on history dates or puzzling over complex math problems. In these quiet moments, Janet felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the heated building. One evening, as they were packing up their books, Zoe hesitated, fiddling with the strap of her bag.
Hey, Janet, can I ask you something?
Janet looked up, noting the uncharacteristic nervousness in her friend's voice.
Of course. What's up?
Zoe took a deep breath. I was wondering if you'd like to go out sometime? Like on a date? The question hung in the air between them, heavy with potential. Janet's heart raced, a mix of excitement and anxiety flooding her system. She'd known, on some level, that her feelings for Zoe went beyond friendship, but facing it head-on was both thrilling and terrifying. I'd like that, Janet heard herself say, her voice barely above a whisper. Zoe's face lit up with a brilliant smile. Really? Great. I was thinking maybe we could go into town this weekend. There's this cute little cafe I've been wanting to try. As they made plans, Janet felt a sense of rightness settle over her. This was another new experience, another step in her journey of self-discovery. And while it was scary, it also felt incredibly natural. The date itself was a mix of awkward moments and genuine connection. They sat across from each other in the cozy cafe, both a little unsure how to act now that the context of their relationship had shifted. But as they talked, sharing stories and dreams, the awkwardness melted away. When Zoe reached across the table to take her hand, Janet felt a jolt of electricity run through her. It was so different from any romantic experience she'd had in her previous life. There was a softness, a gentleness to it that felt incredibly right. As they walked back to campus, hand in hand, Janet marveled at how far she'd come. From a middle-aged man trapped in a life that never fit, to a young woman exploring love and identity in ways she'd never thought possible. The end of the semester brought with it a flurry of activity. Final exams loomed, holiday plans were made, and a bittersweet anticipation of the upcoming break filled the air. Janet threw herself into studying, determined to end her first semester on a high note. On the last day of classes, as students rushed to pack and say goodbyes, Janet found herself standing in her room, looking at the small space that had become home. She thought about the break ahead, about returning to a foster family she had memories of but had never actually met. A soft knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. Zoe stood there, a mix of emotions playing across her face. "Hey," she said softly. "All packed?" Janet nodded, gesturing to her suitcase. "Yeah, just about." "You?" Zoe stepped into the room, closing the distance between them. "Janet, I'm really going to miss you over the break." "I'll miss you too," Janet replied, her heart pounding. They stood there for a moment, the air thick with unspoken words. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.